I used to think truth was the most dangerous weapon in the world. Not bullets, not gangs, not the cold stare of a judge while I testified against a man who could make people disappear. The real danger was my own identity, the part of me I never let anyone see. Now one choice has rewritten everything. I live behind a new name in a quiet neighborhood, wrapped in designer clothes, smiling for neighbors who believe I'm nothing more than a polished, perfect spouse on a wealthy man's arm. A trophy. A decoration. A story that isn't mine. If the mask cracks, I don't just lose safety, I lose every version of my life at once. Half a year ago, everything was simple and painfully normal. I was Adrian Hale, a junior financial analyst lost in columns of numbers and late-night reports. Spreadsheets were predictable. Equations behaved. People didn't. My apartment sat above a loud corner store, and my days were fueled by instant meals and the comfort of being unnoticed. I believed drama belonged to other people. But hidden truths are heavy. Mine had been growing weight for years. After midnight, when the streets went quiet and windows turned dark, I allowed another version of myself to breathe. It wasn't rebellion or humor, it was instinct. The first time I reached for clothing that felt forbidden, my pulse raced like sirens in my ears. When I saw my reflection transformed, it struck like lightning, fear and peace at the same time. The peace frightened me most. So I buried it. Locked it away behind routine and caution. Daylight belonged to the quiet, forgettable Adrian. Night belonged to someone real, someone I never let live for long. Because people like me, I believed, don't get soft endings. We get discovered. Laughed at. Torn apart. I swore it would go no further. And for a while, I almost believed that promise. For a long time, nothing happened, until the night everything broke open. At work, I was assigned harmless accounts, the kind no one double-checks. I was invisible by design. But one evening a directory was left open, a file misfiled, a door unlocked and a system built on locked doors. I clicked once, then again, and the numbers on my screen stopped looking like business. Funds looping through dummy corporations. Transfers tied to public figures. Amounts so massive they felt abstract, unreal, the language of organized crime, not commerce. Every instinct told me to close the window and erase the memory. But shock glued me to the chair, and curiosity finished what fear started. 3 days later, the knock came. 2 federal agents stood outside my apartment, calm and certain. That was when the Real story surfaced. My employer wasn't just bending rules, it was washing money for a network with influence buried deep in government offices, police departments, even courtrooms. And because I'd opened the wrong record, my name had surfaced on their radar. I never imagined myself on a witness stand. I avoid confrontation. I disappear in crowds. But the choice they offered wasn't really a choice. Cooperate and live under protection, or stay visible and stay vulnerable. So I testified. My voice trembled. My fingers were ice. I never once met the defendant's eyes, though I could feel his smile aimed straight at me. 2 weeks after that, I died on paper. New documents. New past. New future. Witness protection. I expected something quiet. A rural town, a forgettable job, a life designed to fade into the background. Instead, I was handed a script. "Your new name is Elena Hart," the handler said, tone flat, procedural. I laughed at first. He didn't. A solo male witness connected to this case would draw attention, he explained. But a suburban married couple? Invisible. Harmless. Ignored. "I'm not married," I told him. "You are now." Then came the final instruction. For my safety, I wouldn't just use a different name. I would live as the wife. That was when fear changed shape. It stopped being a spike and became a horizon, endless, surrounding. I wasn't only hiding from dangerous people anymore. I was hiding inside a role that couldn't come off. The mirror itself became a risk. This wouldn't be a secret version of me allowed only after dark. It would be my daylight identity, every day, no exceptions, no breaks. The house they gave us looks like a brochure photo. White fence. Trim grass. A street that pretends nothing bad has ever happened on it. Neighbors with easy smiles. Quiet that feels rehearsed. Safety that feels borrowed. Behind the neat curtains lives a truth no one here would guess. I'm not the graceful woman they greet each morning. Not the devoted spouse they assume. I'm evidence that learned to breathe. A marked witness, a moving target, a carefully dressed lie in silk and lipstick. The man I'm meant to call my husband isn't just part of the story they built for me. He's a living witness to my transformation. A stranger assigned to stand beside me while I learn how to exist as someone else. But the greatest threat isn't the syndicate that wants me erased. It isn't the curious neighbors or the careful questions. It isn't even the man who knows exactly who I used to be. The real danger is quieter, the feeling that grows each time I face my reflection and can't tell which identity is the performance anymore. Because if Elena begins to feel authentic, then the most frightening question changes. Not will they find me, but will I ever return to being Adrian? Protection programs teach one rule above all: stay alive by staying invisible. What they never explain is the hidden cost. Disappear so completely that even you can't find yourself again. Our first morning in the safe house felt unreal. I woke in a room staged like a catalog, next to a man whose biography I'd studied but whose personality I didn't know. His name, Daniel Hart, sat firmly in my memory. Ex-military, controlled, observant, assigned to play my spouse. He kept to his side of the mattress like a boundary line ran down the center. Respectful. Guarded. Strictly professional. I should have felt safer for that distance. Instead, I felt more vulnerable. On a chair near the dresser waited the wardrobe chosen for my new life. Smooth fabrics, gentle shades, elegant cuts. Clothes meant to be seen, not hidden away. Not rushed on in secret like before. These weren't for stolen moments. They were for daylight, for public view, for the person I was expected to become. "I'll give you 20 minutes," Daniel said from the doorway, voice low and steady. "The street gets busy around 8. It'll look strange if you're not out at least once." He used the name without hesitation. Elena. It still sounded like someone I was supposed to answer for, not someone I was. My chest tightened. I don't know how to live like this every day. His face barely shifted, but his tone warmed a fraction. You don't need perfect. You need believable. Then he stepped away and shut the door. The room went still. And it was just me and the mirror and the question of who was about to look back. There was no more hiding behind locked doors or stolen minutes. No rushed changes, no whispered secrecy, just me standing in the open with a life I couldn't step out of. My fingers shook as I lifted the dress. The material brushed over my skin like a confession finally spoken. Smooth. Weightless. Frighteningly real. Even the smallest motion felt thunderous. My pulse sounded louder than my thoughts. I kept bracing for interruption, for laughter, accusation, exposure. But the room stayed empty. Only the mirror stood ready. Daylight made everything harder. Darkness forgives errors, morning reveals them. My first try at makeup was clumsy, overdone. I erased it with unsteady hands and began again, slower, more deliberate. Each improvement carried a strange blend of tension and control, and a calm that felt almost forbidden. When I finally looked up, I held my breath. The reflection staring back wasn't a costume anymore. She looked convincing enough to exist. That frightened me more than being discovered. Stepping outside felt like entering a performance without rehearsal. The air felt sharper, the sun warmer, every noise turned up. Footsteps on stone, voices in the distance, a dog calling somewhere unseen. I was certain every eye would know. Certain the illusion was transparent. But a gray-haired woman across the street simply smiled. "Good morning, Elena." My mind went blank. Words vanished. Movement stalled. Then the drills Daniel had repeated clicked into place. Gentle tone, brief smile, minimal reply. "Good morning." She continued on without suspicion. Just like that, the role was accepted. It should have felt like success. Instead, it felt like a lock turning behind me. Because the smoother the act became, the less reachable my old self felt. The days formed patterns. Morning coffee while Daniel scanned headlines. Neutral talk about groceries and weather. Walks timed to match neighborhood habits. A carefully staged normal life, sturdy on the surface, brittle underneath. Nights were harder. I would lie awake wondering where endurance ends and transformation begins. One evening, Daniel set a small box on the table. "Cleared item," he said. "No electronics. Within protocol." Inside sat a pair of heels, understated, elegant, unavoidable. My chest tightened. "You don't have to push this far," I said. "Yes," he answered gently. "If we're seen together socially, Elena has to look effortless." Effortless. As if any of this were. I studied the shoes a long time before trying them. When I stood, my balance faltered and my hand caught the table. Daniel moved on instinct to steady me, then checked himself, restoring that careful professional gap. "You'll adapt," he said softly. What unsettled me was that part of me already was. Not just outwardly, inwardly. A quiet ease. A cautious curiosity. A question I avoided finishing. If this began as protection, why does it sometimes feel like peace? Later, I saw my reflection in the darkened window instead of the mirror. Streetlights behind me, outlines softened, almost tranquil. For once, fear wasn't the dominant emotion. Something more complex was taking its place. I realized then the true risk of this identity wasn't exposure. It was attachment, the chance that one day I might not want to leave it behind. Fear rarely strikes like lightning. It spreads like a thin fracture in glass you keep pretending is intact. And the evening everything nearly came apart began like any other in our carefully built illusion. Dinner was quiet, not tense, just controlled. Daniel moved with his usual precision. Few words, steady hands, attention always scanning beyond the room. I once mistook his reserve for indifference. Now I knew better. Attachment creates mistakes, and mistakes get protected witnesses buried. Still, that night carried a different weight. The silence felt thicker. The stillness felt staged, like the moment before something decides to move. "You've got somewhere to be tomorrow," Daniel said at dinner, voice even. I stopped with my fork halfway to my mouth. "Somewhere. Community charity banquet. Neighborhood hosts it every year. Couples attend. We're expected." The word expected hollowed my stomach. Crowds meant variables. Variables meant questions. Questions meant risk. "I'm not prepared," I said under my breath. A faint tension showed along his jaw, the only crack in his composure. "Preparation isn't part of this program," he replied quietly. "Convincing is." Sleep never really came. The outfit for the event hung on the closet door, pale fabric catching the faint light like a verdict already delivered. My old life felt distant, not lost but archived like records belonging to someone officially gone. The fear keeping me awake wasn't only about being recognized. It was the opposite. What if no one recognized me at all? Morning arrived too quickly. Getting ready felt like moving through thick water. My hand trembled with the brush. The clock sounded louder than usual. Each layer, fabric, color, detail, felt like another step across a boundary I couldn't step back over. Today the role felt heavier, less like camouflage and more like conversion. When I entered the living room, Daniel looked up and paused. Just for a beat. Then the neutral expression returned, precise as ever. But I caught it. That flicker unsettled me. If he could momentarily forget the act, maybe everyone else already had too. The banquet hall shimmered with warm lighting and practiced cheer, the perfect cover and the perfect trap. My heels clicked against the floor like audible secrets. Every greeting felt like an exam I hadn't studied for. "Loosen your shoulders," Daniel murmured near my ear. "Nervous stands out." Easy advice from someone still allowed to be himself. At first, it went smoothly. Light conversation. Polite smiles. Harmless topics. Safety began to feel possible, and with it, a dangerous hope. Then I saw him by the refreshment table. I didn't know his name, but recognition hit like cold water. He'd been in the courtroom, not central but present. Watching too closely. Remembering too carefully. My pulse spiked. "Daniel," I breathed without turning my head. "I know," he answered softly. Of course he did. He always tracked the room. Keep your behavior steady. Fear draws attention. The man turned and headed our way, unhurried, interested. Each step sounded like a countdown in my skull. This was how covers failed. Quietly. Publicly. My shoe caught on the floor and I faltered, a tiny misstep that felt like collapse. Daniel's hand settled on my arm at once, supportive and casual to anyone watching. To them, it looked like affection. To me, it felt like the edge of a cliff. His fingers tightened slightly on my arm, subtle to anyone watching, unmistakable to me. Stay steady. Beautiful night, isn't it? The man said when he reached us. His gaze lingered too long, scanning my face like a file he was trying to reopen. I shaped a smile that felt ready to shatter. It really is. The pause stretched thin between us. Then he gave a courteous nod and drifted away. My lungs filled too fast, almost painful, but relief never landed. Daniel leaned closer, voice barely sound. He wasn't unsure. Cold spread through my chest. Then why walk away? Because now he checks quietly, Daniel whispered. We left without haste, no rush, no visible fear, just a perfectly calm exit wrapped around silent alarm. The drive felt endless. Streetlights slid past like countdown markers. Every parked car looked suspicious. Inside the house, my control finally broke. My hands tremored, breath uneven. I can't keep doing this, I said. I can't keep being her just to die anyway. Daniel took a moment before answering, and when he did, the handler tone was gone. What remained was human. You're alive tonight. You don't know that. No, he said softly. But I know this, the real risk isn't them discovering you. It's you deciding you never existed in the first place. The words cut deeper than panic because I'd already wondered it myself. Which identity was the costume? Later, alone at the mirror, tears blurred the outlines staring back. I removed one careful piece of the persona, not rejecting it, not embracing it, just seeing it. And the truth unsettled me. This life wasn't only shelter anymore. It was becoming will. Headlights suddenly washed across the room, a car stopping outside. Wrong timing. Wrong place. Daniel's voice snapped from the hall. Away from the windows. Who is it? A pause, heavy, loaded. Not random. Silence thickened, the kind that arrives right before impact. The engine outside idled. Waiting. My pulse felt loud enough to give us away. Daniel checked through the curtain with a single controlled glance. His expression cooled, not surprise but confirmation. That's not a resident, he said. Police? I asked. No. The car door opened. Footsteps followed, slow, confident. Not searching. Approaching. Listen carefully, Daniel said, voice precise. If this goes bad, you take the rear exit route. No delay. What about you? I hold the front. We go together. That's not how survival works. A knock sounded, soft, polite, absolute. More frightening than force. Go, he urged. I'm not leaving you. You are. His eyes locked on mine, not protector and asset anymore, but two people caught in the same storm. Somewhere along the lie, something real had formed. Metal scraped at the lock. This is because of me, I choked. Stop, he said, warm, certain. You chose truth. That's courage. No one had ever called me that. The lock cracked. Time vanished. He stepped closer than rules allowed. Keep living, he said quietly. No matter which name you carry. I didn't know which one he meant. Wood splintered. Voices entered. My body finally obeyed and moved. The back hallway stretched like a tunnel. Halfway there, a thought struck hard. Running might cost me the only person who knew my whole story. The front door burst open behind me. Shouts. Then nothing. I reached the back exit and hesitated, turning to the dark hallway mirror. Not the old self. Not the constructed one. Someone forged between them. A crash from the front. Daniel's voice, then silence. Forward meant survival. Back meant truth. My hand closed on the knob. A whisper rose behind me. Adrian. I froze. Only one person should know that name, and he wasn't supposed to be here. If you were in that moment, would you run or turn around? And who do you think stepped into the hallway?